Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast podcast, YouTube video interview program that features me talking to some of the best and brightest in the atheist / secular / awesome community. This is episode 217. I recorded this interview on March 31st, 2020. Today is April 1st, 2020, and I prefer April Cool's Day to April Fool's Day. Thanks and stay safe to last week's Brave Show participant Jeff Cooper, aka the Blue Collar Heathen, or just Blue Collar Heathen. I do highly recommend his video on philosophy and the 5 ways of St. Thomas Aquinas because so many of my listeners are metal for philosophy. There are times when you get a guest who's rolling through other atheist podcasts and you just don't care about duplication because A, the stories are compelling, and B, I really needed a guest. This is Rob Ray's 3rd appearance on the show. He's been on episodes 45 and 129. 129 was the so-called exit interview for Secular Yakking, which might make a Twin Peaks-like return. I've never seen Twin Peaks, so hopefully that works. You can't keep a good podcaster down, so Rob created a new show called Sparky on Ice to discuss his time in Antarctica. Yes, he went to Antarctica, and I say that poorly many times during this show. This man went to Antarctica to work on purpose. Why does he think penguins are jerks? How does one best use 85 pounds of luggage space when heading around the world? What's his go-to karaoke song? Find out that and more when we start the conversation.
You're much less racist than I thought you'd be.
Well, my goodness, I wish I could take more credit for that, but the bar set by old white men in this great country of ours is just oh so very low.
Hopefully this works. That's a good start. Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast. Rob Ray, you're returning. This is your 3rd appearance on the show. You've been on episodes 45 and 129, so congrats on the hat trick.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
And it's past the usual bedtime, so tonight, just water. Huh. Go figure. So you're coming to me the very, very furthest, about as far north as you can get in America, other than Alaska, of course.
Yeah, pretty close. Up in northwest. So
Northwest
about an
Montana.
hour from the Canadian border. Yeah.
Well, I'm in Atlanta.
We're pretty much in the middle.
Ted Turner kind of owns like 90% of the state. So, yeah. At least that's what I've heard.
Cool.
That could be a joke. So, since we last talked, you've been on what they call the hero's journey. What made you think, well, I live in Montana, so Antarctica can't be that much colder?
It was an adventure that I needed to take. So I moved to Montana, and there was a severe lack of work. So I was looking for work at the time. And a guy calls me up, one of those recruiter guys, and he's like, hey, you want to go to Antarctica? And I was like, I don't know. That sounds weird. Is this a scam? Right? And so I looked it up. It wasn't a scam. Talked to the wife, and was like, it's a job. I should probably do it. Be kind of cool. So went through all the processes and went to Antarctica.
And it was just very straightforward, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, no physicals or anything like that, you know.
So between like that initial call and you actually getting on a plane, like how much time was it?
Let's see. They called me in late October, and I was on the plane in mid-January.
And you mentioned no doctor's visits, but I believe it's a little different. So what do you need to do medically to get cleared to travel to Antarctica?
So actually there is a visit to a doctor. You have to have a full physical. At my age, I have to have an EKG and a wonderful digital colon exam. Those are so much fun. So you also have to qualify dentally, which means no tooth decay, no broken teeth, no impacted molars and things like that. They want to make sure that you're not going to have any dental issues while you're down there and that you're not going to die. Those are the really 2 big concerns.
Those are good concerns. So what did you have to do dentally before you headed down there?
Oh, yeah. So that was quite a process. some years ago, I'd fallen and broken my teeth. Six of my front teeth. If anybody has seen me in the past 10 years, would know that my front teeth were broken. And at the time didn't have dental insurance, so I just dealt with it. And when this came up, I was like, well, I can't go to Antarctica with broken teeth. So I had a total of 10 teeth pulled in one day.
That seems
including
rough.
my molars, because I'd never had them touched. Yeah, that was a fun day for me.
So was it the same injury where you damaged your teeth and your knee? Because I know you had like knee surgery before you went down.
Yeah, so the knee was what caused the damage to the teeth. I fell down. I'd blown my knee out and hit the tub. That did not feel good. The knee injury was a recurring injury from when I was like a teenager. Been going on for 20 years, and finally was able to get it completely repaired. 3 years ago? 2 years ago.
So do you still have dental work to do?
Yeah, I've still got a few things to do. Probably get my implants in. Right now, I'm just wearing fake teeth. So, but it got me to Antarctica.
Well, why is it you had to get all of the dental? Like, why did you get your dental ducks in a row before you had to go? I'll say south.
Well, there is very little dental work done down there. There's a dentist there for like 3 weeks out of the year, and basically all he does is cleaning for people who are heading back home and some work. So they want to make sure you don't have any dental issues, because dental issues require you to go to Christchurch if you do go down.
And that's New Zealand, everybody. Get to know your cities, y'all.
It's 8 hour. Yeah, it's a 6 to 8 hour flight, depending on what kind of plane you get on. That, and if you do it in the middle of winter and it's emergency, it's like $1 million.
So the trip itself, how much like prep did the company you're working for give you to kind of get ready before you even got on a plane?
They actually do a pretty good job on telling us what we need and what they're going to provide. So they provide the ECW gear, which is extreme cold weather gear. Basically a pair of Carhartt bibs, the quilted lined, and then Big Red, and some gloves and stuff like that. We have to provide all our thermal gear, their under thermals, and regular clothing. And for me, I had to provide work boots. But they did a really good job of telling us what we should and should not bring. And since we only have 85 pounds of luggage, you got to be really tight on what you're bringing.
And how close were you at the end to the?
I was like 80, 83, 84 pounds. I was pretty tight on my weight.
And what's the job that you were scheduled to do down there?
So I am an electrician by trade. So that's what I was doing down there. When I first went down in January, that was my assignment was just to be an electrician for through the April contract. And then I decided that maybe I should stay for the winter, because that sounds like fun. Winter in Antarctica. It's not cold or dark or anything. Yeah. And then while I was down there for the winter foreman asked me, or basically he suggested that I should become the summer foreman so that he can have a reliable person there for the summer and then come back to something decent. I was like, okay, why not? So took the foreman position, ended up staying until February.
So you got a promotion way down there. That sounds pretty good.
I did. Yeah, that was good. Stressful, but good.
But when you're in Antarctica, it sounds like you get additional jobs just because there's not a ton of people down there. So what else did you end up having to do besides like your day job while you were there?
Well, community is a big deal down there, and we like to have fun. And part of that is, somebody needs to run some of the things that you do. One of the things I like to do was the trivia in the bar and karaoke. So, which I'd never done either one before I went down to Antarctica, by the way. So those were both first. And so I decided to become the person who ran trivia and karaoke every other week. So, which was incredibly fun.
Yeah, I'd say karaoke. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. See, that's just, you're adding to the resume right there, you know?
Yeah. I can do karaoke. And I DJ'd a couple dance parties while I was down there. So
nice. So I
knew how to run the soundboard.
What is the journey like? So you're traveling from where you are in Montana to Antarctica. What are all the flights involved, and what's like the time frame from you to get from where you are to get there?
So my total time frame to get there was, I want to say it was like a 29 hours to get there. Went to Denver, then to San Francisco, hopped over to Auckland, and then down to Christchurch. And then I had to stay in Christchurch for a couple days because we did have a plane delay the first day I got there. And then the 8-hour LC-130 flight over to Antarctica, which was just so much joy. I don't know if you've ever been on an LC-130, but their seats are only rigging. So you're basically sitting on the mesh, a jump seat.
So you're not exactly like putting in your earbuds and listening to podcasts. It's pretty loud.
It's kind of hard to. It is incredibly loud in an LC-130.
So you ended up in New Zealand longer than you thought. Did you actually have, since you probably brought mostly cold weather clothes, what was let's see, I'm trying to remember what time of the year it was, and what was it like being in New Zealand for a couple of days?
So it was in the 80s while I was there, but I was smart enough to bring a pair of shorts and a t-shirt because I knew I might get stuck in Christchurch. So keep that in mind.
Now, is New Zealand, is that somewhere you'd like to visit for a while, or are you okay with your couple of days you had?
Yeah, for me, I was fine with a couple of days. I'm not really into the sightseeing and stuff like that. I mean, we did go out and we saw a couple of things a couple of days we were there. They have an amazing arboretum down there, which we went to because it's the last time we get to see flowers for quite some time. But yeah, Christchurch is fine. So a lot of people will take time in Christchurch on their way back through. They'll take a couple weeks, go travel New Zealand or Australia or whatever, and then they'll go home.
What was the experience like getting to Antarctica for the first time? And where in Antarctica did you end up? And is like where you landed where you were going to stay?
Yeah. So I landed at Williefield, which is just outside of McMurdo Station. Which is where I was supposed to be stationed. And at Willifield's 9 miles on the ice away from McMurdo Station, which is on Ross Island. So, and you're literally landing on ice and snow. You're on the sea ice.
Oh, of course. Didn't you say there's a volcano on the island?
Yeah, it's Mount Erebus, which we could see from there. And it's the most southern volcano in the world, active volcano.
When's the last time it's gone off?
It's constantly smoking and doing cool stuff. The last decent eruption was 10, 15 years ago.
And when you get down there, what are the living situation like, or what is it like?
So for the summer folks, you end up having a roommate. Depending on which building you're in, you can have up to 3 other roommates with you. So, which is just so much fun. You know, having to sleep in the same room with people you really don't know. Just something you don't normally do as an adult. During the winter, you do get your own room, and depending on what building you're in, you get to share a suite type bathroom, which was pretty nice. I got to do that this winter.
So it's a step up.
Yeah.
So when the last time you were on the show, you were talking about how you were going to stop doing secular yakking. So when you went down there, did you think, hey, I'm going to do a podcast? Or did that just kind of come up as you were in Antarctica?
It just kind of came up while I was down there. I was thinking about it. I was like, people would like to know what's going on down here. So I thought about it and asked a couple other podcasters, would this work? And they were like, probably. So I decided to start a podcast while I was down there to talk about my life and how things were going down there.
And how'd you come up with a name for the show?
So the electricians are generally called Sparkies in the trade. So, and I was on the ice, so figured Sparky on ice was appropriate.
And what was your studio like compared to the one you're in right now?
So, not as nice. So I didn't go down with any equipment because I didn't intend to do a podcast while I was down there. But I did have a wardrobe and a tablet and some packing material from some of the shipping stuff we do, like some of the foam packing. So I lined the wardrobe with the foam packing and hung up some blankets around me and recorded out of a wardrobe on a tablet.
I have to say, I listened to the first episode and I'm like, you know what? Your sound quality is kind of close to mine. That's it's a tip of the cap to you and the opposite to me.
You have Antarctic quality sound. Awesome.
Thank you. Yes. And how's I think it's seasonal from what I recall, like the actual internet strength you have down there and how reliable it is.
Yeah, that's the big issue down there is basically our uplink is 20 gigs, which is about the strength of an iPhone or Android on the 5G. During the winter, it's not so bad because there's only 150-ish people on station. But during the summer, you can have over 1,000 people, and 1,000 people trying to share 20 gigs doesn't go over too well.
So how is the McMurdo Station experience? I mean, I guess it does depend on what season you're in, but you're dealing with a bunch of scientists and then a bunch of support people. Is there much tourism down there?
There is very little tourism down there. I mean, we did get a couple cruise ships that come through and dock for half a day or something sometimes, but normally it's just the science that's going on and the support for the science.
And so when you were down there, clearly I've made it 16 minutes in and I haven't asked a question about penguins. So did you make some friends down there?
I hate penguins, just so you know. I mean, I love penguins for being penguins, but in real life, they're assholes.
They just don't treat you very well.
No, they like to stand in the middle of the road when you're trying to do things.
Oh yeah, they're protected, right?
Yeah, so we can't touch them. We can't shoo them away. We have to wait for them to move. And if you're on your way to do something important, oh well, you got to wait.
Now, are people like upset when you say this? When you tell them that they're since they've watched all the documentaries, they're like, no, penguins aren't all they're cracked up to be.
No, they're stinky and smelly. They are awful cute though. They really are. It is quite a treat to see them shuffling down the ice, especially when they decide to torpedo away, because they can really move. You don't really understand how fast a penguin can move till you're actually seeing one sled down the runway.
Now, is it true that people can't have dogs down there?
No, there are no dogs. If I remember correctly, they stopped having dogs in the late 70s, early 80s, because there is a virus that dogs carry that can affect the seals and penguins.
Well, how much did you know about Antarctica before you went down? How much did you learn there, and how did you kind of convey all that information since you had the medium of a podcast?
Well, I like most people, I knew virtually nothing about Antarctica. I knew where it was, but and it was covered in ice. That's really all I knew when I went down. But when I got there, I found out there is an amazing amount of history there, between the expeditions and the amount of science that goes on there. So I put that as part of my podcast as a history segment, talking about the explorations and stuff like that were down there, like the Shackleton and the Amundsen race to the South Pole.
Well, do you have like a favorite kind of story from history? Maybe something that people don't know other than people freezing in the cold because, it's cold.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories is the Shackleton expedition, which seems to be everyone's favorite. During one of their trips down, they actually ended up getting stuck in the sea ice for 2 years. So these guys in the early 1900s are stuck in Antarctica for 2 solid years. There's only like 14 of them.
Yeah, I think I read
that whole story,
the book about it. Like them getting back, and even the trip outside Antarctica was crazy because
the
fact that anybody lived out of that.
Yeah,
it's just like, I'm going to be cool and find the South Pole, and then you don't realize, because the South Pole was how far from where you were?
About 750 miles ish. Yeah, something close to that.
Which I'm guessing it would be a bit of a hike.
Yeah, it's several days at least.
Do you get to do much kind of traveling, or do you pretty much stay in the same area while you're there?
Most people will stay on the station, and I got the privilege to take a helicopter ride out to Black Island because we were doing some electrical work out there, which was a 20-minute helicopter ride over the sea ice, which is really cool.
Sounds pretty good. And while you were down there, you were doing YouTube videos as well? What were you showing off?
Yeah. I was doing some YouTube, a couple minutes here and there, showing off the view. And a lot of times it was mainly about the weather that was going on, the Con 1, Con 2 weather that came up. So it gets pretty windy down there and pretty snowy at times.
What is the Con 1 and Con 2?
So we have 3 conditions of weather. Condition 3, which is normal weather, which most people would call harsh winter down here in the rest of the world. So that's, winds less than 50 knots, and it's not like negative 45 yet. And you can see more than a mile. Con 2 is when the winds hit over 50 knots. You can see a quarter mile, and it's below negative 50. Or any one of those 3 conditions can cause it to go Con 2. And then Con 1 is when less than 100 feet visibility, I think 75 knots, and I want to say like negative 75 on temperature. But during Con 2, you're supposed to be wary, travel in groups and stuff like that. And Con 1 is a complete lockdown. You stay where you are until Con 1's called off because you literally can't see. There were stories of people who have gotten lost and ended up in entirely different buildings than they intended to go to.
So how many Con 1 situations were you in?
I want to say 5 or 6. A lot of times you could tell they were coming, so you would get to the building 155, which was our main building where all the food and most of the housing was. That was priority number 1, was to get to that building if you thought Con 1 was coming.
Well, when it comes to eating down there, is it pretty much like a cafeteria type situation? Are you actually doing any cooking your own where you live?
No, it's cafeteria style. So we have a galley. Since it's Navy, it used to be Navy run, everything's called a galley. Which they have pretty good food down there. It's not great, but it's nutritional most of the time and edible most of the time.
Well, does pretty much everything have to be shipped down there?
Yeah, everything is shipped via cargo ship. So every year they get a big cargo ship that comes down with, several million tons of cargo. And it also ships out several million tons of waste. Because everything has to be shipped off continent too.
So how do they deal with fresh water?
We have a double RO system and it converts seawater into fresh water, which is reverse osmosis.
So is part of the scientific work done down there, or is actually like people preparing for potential trip to Mars, that sort of thing?
Yeah. In fact, there's a place called Dry Valleys where they tested the Mars rovers. It's one of the few places in Antarctica that never gets snow, and it has a Martian-like environment because the rocks are still very volcanic, since everything's volcanic rock in that area, and it's very dry, very cold, so it's very much like going to Mars.
Yeah, it's not very toasty over there.
No.
I hear you need some sunscreen anyway.
Yeah.
So while you were there, do you remember what the coldest temperature it was? And I'm guessing because of the wind chill probably is key here too.
Yeah. So the coldest ambient that I was there was, I think it was -51. But the coldest wind chill that we had while I was there was close to, I want to say -75, 76. Those were some pretty cold days. We were out working in some of them. So,
yeah, is there like a temperature extreme where no matter what you're wearing, they pretty much say no? I mean, I guess that's that con one situation, right?
Yeah. Once you get past -75, then they're like, no, nobody's going outside.
Well, I feel like I can't be on brand without asking this question. So what is the booze and beer selection like in Antarctica?
It is somewhat limited. I'm a cider drinker myself, and they only had 3 choices in cider, and 2 of them sucked. So,
what was the good one?
It was I always got the name wrong, so I'm gonna try and get this right. I think it's called Hammer and Strong. I always wanted to call it something weird like Screwdriver and Weak or something. I don't know. I always got the name of it wrong, but it was the only decent cider. They had, I don't even remember the name of the middle one, but the crappy one was called Scrumpies, which came in this 1 liter bottle.
Ooh, 1 liter bottle.
I was like, no, why would you give me a liter of cider? That makes no sense.
Oh, boy.
They did have most of your standard liquors. I didn't buy it often, so I don't know. I'm trying to remember what they had. They had a New Zealand beer called Tuli's. I think that's the name of it. I want to say they had like PBR. I think they had PBR or something other crappy beer. I don't remember.
I was like, I know they probably had something like Bud Light. I'm like, they probably cost them like $100 a can to ship it down. I was like, sure.
Oh, I know they had some Coors down there too. I remember that. And like I said, a general selection of your standard whiskeys and some scotch and wine and stuff like that. So it's not a dry continent, but it's not exactly a smorgasbord of alcohol either.
So while you were down there, was there like a certain food or like a meal that you missed most of all, like that you had to get when you came back?
Baked potato, like a big baked potato, due to the limited resources and the fact that they cook for hundreds and hundreds of people. Baked potatoes didn't come out very often, and when they did, they were those tiny little tiny potatoes. So I wanted a baked potato with cheese and bacon and sour cream and all that other fun stuff.
Well, since it's kind of an international continent, what are the laws like down there?
So each station has its own, you have to pretty much follow the laws of the country of the station that you're in. But there are international treaties which says we can't leave anything behind. We can't molest the critters down there. There's no commercial use of the land at all. So there's no oil drilling, and there's absolutely no military presence for weapons.
Well, one of the hardships for being down there had to be being away from your wife. What was that negotiation like when you're like, okay, I'm going to go to Antarctica for initially a few months and then a year plus?
Right. It was difficult at first. She was not entirely on board, but she understood that this was a job to do, because I wasn't having much luck in Montana at the time. And it was a big adventure. And we figured we'd just work our way through it. And we did.
And what was it like getting back? Because I know it took you a little longer than you thought to return.
Yeah, so the trip back, I was delayed by a day on. Well, it was kind of weird. I was supposed to leave on the 19th. That was my original leave date, and then they came up and said, "Hey, you want to leave 2 days early?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll leave 2 days early. Why not? Sounds like fun." And then that day came, and we had a weather delay, so I didn't get to leave 2 days early anyway. But that was a very long. I think that was a 36-hour trip back because of the layovers and just an incredibly long trip.
And when did you return?
Oh man, my brain died. Late February. So
you've been back like just more than a month, and
yeah, a little more than a month.
How is since you're in a bit of a rural area, at least compared to where I am, how has the reaction been to our current national crisis?
It's kind of weird because we isolated down there all the time. Whenever we got new people coming in on the planes, especially for the winter folks, we'd take pretty much the same precautions that we're taking now. Wash your hands a lot. Stay away from people that are coughing and stuff like that. A lot of times when people came down on planes, they'd bring what we was called the crud, which is just an upper respiratory infection generally, but it would spread through the community like wildfire down there. So you try to avoid as much as possible. And I'm just using the same stuff I learned there here.
But you are planning on going back?
Absolutely. I've already got a contract, and I'm going back in September.
And what's the amount of time there? So is that the summer shift?
That'll be the summer season. I'll be there, I think 5.5 months, depending on when I get to leave in February.
Do you think that's the schedule you might stay on, or you don't know? Maybe you'll stay a little longer, like last time.
I don't anticipate staying longer. If I do, it may only be for a month or two. I don't plan on staying for another winter unless I sign up specifically to go down for winter. Winter can be pretty harsh down there.
I would guess, yeah. Is it easier to go back? Like, you're able to store some of your cold weather gear?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've got 2 boxes of stuff down there. I came back with a backpack. That's what I brought back with me. I went down with a fully stuffed military-sized duffel bag, and I came back with just a backpack.
Well, what kind of like since you've done this, and you might be able to help people who might travel for the first time, what are you probably planning on bringing that you didn't last time? Or are there certain like personal supplies you ran out of last time that you're gonna try to get enough to make it through 6 months?
Yeah. So I use like shower gel. So more of that, because I had to have some shipped down. Toothpaste, if you don't want to use their toothpaste. Just your toiletries. Make sure you bring enough toiletries that you prefer, because the stuff down there is not always the greatest, or even in date, because most of our stuff is expired down there.
Yeah, what's the toilet paper situation like down there?
They have probably entire mill vans full of it. So they're probably pretty good.
So it could be better. Huh?
Could be. I know that a couple of the electricians that I was talking to, or that were on my crew, were supposed to leave in April. And they've actually asked to stay till June because of the situation here in the States.
Yeah, there probably are a few people who are like, yeah, maybe another 3 months wouldn't hurt. Even though that is, well, it's probably the coldest time of the year too, right?
Yeah, June. Well, July and August are pretty much the coldest. June is starting to get really cold. Our 4th of July parade, it was -30 out.
So no fireworks?
No fireworks.
But you don't necessarily need fireworks down there, right? Isn't the sky really clear? Because aren't there like no lights that are actually pointing up at night there?
Right. Yeah, that is very true. The only light that points up is the one that points at the flag, because that's a requirement. But everything else is shrouded, and we keep the ambient light as low as possible.
Well, normally my goal of the show is to introduce people to shows that are going to probably enjoy more than mine. Your case, it's more like, hey, if you want to live in Antarctica, how do you do that? So instead of introducing people to their new content crush, I'll be responsible for freezing them to death. So how does someone apply to work in Antarctica? And I can't even say Antarctica. So, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. So if you're American, you go to usap.gov/careers, and that will give you links to all the different contractors that support McMurdo Station and the South Pole and Palmer. So if you have any sort of trade skill, that's good. If you can drive a truck, they take pretty much everybody, including what we call stewies, which are basically dish room attendants and dining room attendants. So even if you have no skills at all, you can do that.
So you have a place down there.
Yeah.
Now I heard it was kind of a cliquey situation. So what kind of clique did you find yourself in?
The same one I'm always in, the outcasts, the leftovers, people who don't fit in other cliques.
And what are some misconceptions about like your day-to-day life in Antarctica?
That's a tough one. We worked 6 9-hour days, so most of our time was spent working. Obviously, it was 54-hour weeks. Plus, I was on call all the time, or a lot of the time. I don't know. I think people tend to think that we don't do anything at all down there, when there is a vibrant community down there and tons of stuff to do.
Yeah, what are some of your favorite things to do when you had, the rare time off, your 1 day a week off?
I loved going to bar trivia and karaoke. Those were my two favorite things to do in the off time. In fact, I loved them so much, I took over both of them as the person of contact for the summer. So
nice. How many bars are there down there?
There are 2. There's Gallagher's and Southern Exposure. One is a full bar with soundstage and everything you expect in one of those type places. The other is more of a lounge type bar.
And of course, this doesn't qualify because there are no sports now. But are you able to watch sporting events down there? Do they have satellite connections and all?
Yeah, we have AFRTS, Armed Forces Radio and TV Services. So whatever they're broadcasting is what we get to watch. And which they had 5 or 6 sports channels, a couple movie channels, and some primetime TV channels.
Okay. So I hear it's a good place to see meteorites. Were you able to do any exploration?
I didn't get to personally, but I did get to see a couple fly overhead that were headed towards the continent, which was kind of neat. And they're really bright in the sky down there.
So what's the time zone compared to now? Or to where, I mean, you're 2 hours behind me.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were on New Zealand time down there, which I like to say was 1 day ahead minus 4 hours from where I lived. So it was 20-hour difference.
So it's not too bad.
No.
How do you do in terms of, do you even have like a data plan on a phone down there?
No, there's no phones down there. There's no cell service whatsoever. In fact, we still used pagers. That was our means of emergency communication, and then the other communication was all radio.
But were you able to reach people at home, or you have to kind of just email?
We did.
Available?
So, yeah, everything was done through the satellite uplink. Our phones are VoIPed out of Denver, which is weird. So we could call anybody in Denver for free. So I set up my wife with a Google Voice number from Denver, so I could call her.
So while you're back, since you're going to be back for a few months, are there plans for the glorious return of secular yakking?
There are plans in motion for the possible return of secular yakking. I am heavily in favor of it. My wife is mostly in favor. So it depends on a few things that are going on around here. So, but yeah, it looks like if things go right, I'll do secular yakking while I'm in the States for the summer, and then Sparky on Ice while I'm in Antarctica for the summer.
So when will Sparky on Ice season 2 begin? So you got seasons.
Yeah, I'm gonna have seasons. Officially in September, I'll return to weekly podcasting, and throughout the summer, I'll be dropping one a month to catch everybody up on everything that happened during the summer while I was still there, since I dropped off back in August.
Has anything happened with the original motto project?
When I went to Antarctica, it kind of went on hiatus, and then everything kind of blew up for the In God We Trust stuff while I was down there, and a lot of the bigger groups started taking over that. So I figured the original motto project was no longer necessary. It had done its job by keeping In God We Trust in enough of a spotlight so that people would still notice it.
Yeah, so things have not gotten better, you'd say, in terms of
no
state separation. Yeah,
no, absolutely not. So as much as I would love to continue running the original motto project, I don't think there's any way that I can, given my current situation.
So what's your is there a favorite cider where you're located, or is it just a U.S. one that you enjoy?
Yeah, it's just a U.S. one. I tend to drink Angry Orchard quite a bit, so that's just readily available. I like most ciders except for Scrumpies. I'll never touch Scrumpies again.
Yeah, if you show up doing your YouTube video, chugging a 1 liter bottle of that, something really wrong has happened. That's your sign.
Yes, sign. That is my sign. That means we ran out of everything else.
So what is, as we're getting toward the end of the show, what is like a secret talent, or is there a joke, or as karaoke guy, is there maybe a karaoke song that's like your go-to if the crowd's a little down, to get them rolling?
So as far as my own karaoke, I tend to, my go-to for everything is Under the Bridge from the Chili Peppers. It's one of the few songs I can sing rather well because I am off tune all the time. But a lot of times, I'll pull out some Blondie or something if people are getting really frustrated. My first karaoke was Rapture.
Okay.
That's a tough song to karaoke, by the way.
Yeah, there's some songs where you, what was that? Crocodile Rock. I was like, I'll do that. And then I forgot that you have to go la 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 like 400,000 times.
Yeah.
And you cannot do that. Like Elton John doesn't even do that anymore because he's just, no one can do that. You're like, no, anytime you do high pitched singing, please, don't do that. And do you have any places near where you live? Do you get to do karaoke locally where you're like, this guy's pretty good, or I got some tips for you, man?
I have officially hung up my karaoke mic, and now I just do the shows.
Oh, you don't actually sing? Oh, come on.
No, I don't sing anymore. I might do it. I'll probably just keep that to Antarctica.
So is Antarctica not? Is it good or bad for the voice? Probably a little rough.
Yeah, it's pretty dry down there, but we try to stay as lubricated as possible for karaoke.
Yeah, do some people come down? Do they just have to carry like half their weight in like moisturizer because it is rather dry?
Yeah, it's very dry down there. They provide plenty of moisturizer and pumps all over the place. Sunscreen's provided, stuff like that. The store does have things that you can buy like that. But yeah, that's another thing you should probably bring is your own. If you like moisturizer, bring your own.
Well, if secular yakking is still kind of on hiatus, where can people find your content? Check out Sparky on Ice and your YouTube stuff and your podcasts.
So I tried to make it easy, and I just called everything Sparky on Ice. So the YouTube channel is Sparky on Ice. Website is sparkyonice.xyz. Figured I'd use the last letters of the alphabet for the last place on Earth, which worked out pretty good. And you can also find the podcast itself on Spreaker. I think that's where I've got it now.
Well, sounds great. Well, thanks for sharing your experiences. And if secular yakking comes back alive, just let me know and I'll signal boost.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for chatting with you again, Rob.
All right.
Titties. Titties and titties. Titties plus titties equals titties.
Live read. I'm sure I'll get some complaints or no complaints at all. Come on, Zachrilege Law. Why are you doing another podcast highlighting something that was your own content? Well, I say about 8 words during this episode, so I feel like it fits. This Saturday, I don't know, there were like at least 10 people involved in what became simultaneously a Left It at the Valley goodbye to the podcast, and a discussion on death with Nancy, one of the co-hosts of the show. I had her on with the other female co-hosts of Left at the Valley maybe a month ago. And a few weeks ago, Kevin, the creator of the show, the organizer of the show, the glue of the show, not the kind you sniff, decided to let a bunch of podcasters in the atheist community know that Nancy on the show has terminal cancer. And strangely, she wanted to talk about it with all of us and about how she's decided to have death with dignity. This is something that Dave Warnock, who also was recently on Left at the Valley, discusses really well. It was kind of an open forum discussion on death with Nancy giving some really good, like very measured kind of speeches, the kind that I don't know if I could do if I was near death, but maybe I could because I'm a pretty even-keeled guy. I tend to not get terribly emotional, and my own death discussions tend to be, oh yeah, I remember how sad it was when our cats died, which just didn't feel appropriate, even though I think some of the way we treat pets versus the way we treat people who are near death really shows where our values are at. But it was a really good show with a lot of good podcasters, mostly good podcasters, but we won't get into that because that's not what this episode was all about. but it's a good show to listen to. It's just a good way to say kind of goodbye to Nancy, to say goodbye to Left of the Valley, although I have a feeling that show will make a return, because there are just some shows in the community that are needed and add value. I don't know if I'm one of those shows, but Left of the Valley, definitely on that list. So if you want to support this show, just to let you know, during the whole COVID-19 situation, I am not charging patrons of the show. I probably could take people's money and then Patreon would get a little cut and then I could donate that money to a good cause. But you know what? Until, I don't know, May, June 2040, I am not going to charge. But you know what? Patreons still get bonuses. So, and they still get thanked. So thank you, Freethinker215, Alan Marks, Hugh-Man, Chris of the Postmodern Polymath Podcast, Larry, Daryl, and the other Daryl, and go to patreon.com/Zachrilege. You get extended episodes. This week I did a 9-minute discussion about a lemon chicken enchilada recipe. Trust me, it's good. And you get cat videos as well. And with me working from home, yeah, I'm getting a lot of cat videos. So follow me on Twitter, like my Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook, and send all mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. Hopefully a YouTuber named XMoLex, who, ex-Mormon, will be on the show shortly. So until then, let's continue the conversation.